Hello everyone, welcome to Southern Wreaths. Be sure to watch my video till the end for a sneak peek at my next video. And please take a moment to subscribe. Today I'm going to make this really fun 3D burlap pumpkin wreath. I'd actually made a white version of this a year ago and I didn't record it, so I wanted to record it so you could see how I made it. These are the supplies I'm going to use to make this wreath. I also used some zip ties. I'm using this burlap from, I believe it was from Walmart. And I'm going to tri-fold it. And I'm going to create kind of like a rope. I'm going to use this hot glue. It's Gorilla Glue hot glue, so it holds really well. I'm not putting a ton on. I'm usually just putting a string or two, a stripe or two of the hot glue along it. You want to be careful not to burn yourself. This burlap's pretty thick, so I didn't really have any issues with that. I did get it on me, just not, I didn't burn myself, thankfully, but you want to be really careful. And then after that's cooled, you go to the next section. And you're going to do this with the entire roll of burlap. So you're just creating like a rope. And this glue holds pretty well once it dries. I had no issue of it coming apart. So once I finish the first roll, I do use 2 rolls of this burlap. So I just like to roll it up. Now, something I learned while doing this is do not add them together yet until after you've added the first roll. I'm actually going to make just one giant roll, and what I should have done is once I finished putting the one roll, like weaving it through the pumpkin frame, then I should have added this roll, because it made the bundle extremely large, and when you're weaving in and out of the metal sections, it was pretty hard and it kept falling apart. I mean, it was doable, but to make your life easier, I would wait to attach them until you've already wove the whole first one through. And I'm going to do this second one the exact same way as the first, where I'm just tri-folding it. So right here where I'm connecting them, I suggest not doing that until you've completely attached the one on the right. So you can watch what I'm doing now, how I connected them, but just wait to connect them. That's my advice. Okay, so I am using a Dollar Tree pumpkin frame, and I'm going to start by attaching my burlap to the side right here. I'm going around the outside and then up through around that whole section. Sorry, I was trying to get it out. And I'm going to use a zip tie to attach it. I do like to weave through the burlap when I'm using burlap. So I'm just going to go through, and then I'm just going to put it back through the burlap. And I'm attaching it at this corner where that first section meets. And then I'll just trim that away. So you see how big my roll is? If you did 2 separate sections and then attach them, you would not have this giant bundle. It does work, but it was a headache. So I'm basically just weaving it through. I go, over one, under one, over one, under one. And I'm not worrying about which way it's facing yet. I do all that per section. But I do suggest rolling it up like that just because it's easier to get it through the bars. So after I get the first or the bottom layer pulled through, I make sure it's all facing the right way. And then I realized I did not like the way it was separated from the bottom. Now, I could have taken a chance and just went through and did the whole thing and hoped that it pushed down, but I wasn't sure if it was going to turn out okay. So I am going through with these zip ties and attaching the burlap to the actual frame, just so it doesn't move up. And I'm just putting it directly through the burlap and then around the frame. And I'm not too worried with it yet. I do trim it away, but at the end I go through and make sure you can't see that it's there. And you could skip this step. It might work out okay. I just didn't want to have to undo anything. This was just safety. Okay, so here's how I'm going to show you how I secure it. I take the hot glue and put it on the back of each one, and then I push it into the burlap. And that made it where the zip tie would not roll down, so it kept the burlap where it's supposed to be, if that makes sense. And now I'm just going to continue weaving. I do go around the outside frame, and then I'm just going to go back across, going under, over, under, over. I see it become a big mess, and I do have to rewrap it a couple times while I'm going through. For the most part, it's pretty simple, though. This wreath wasn't too hard to make for it to look as great as it does. I do make sure each section that I'm turning my burlap the right way, because you don't want the seam side showing. I mean, you might want it to, but I didn't want the seam side showing. So as I was going through, I was making sure I turned it at the end so that when the corners, when I was pulling it back through, that the corners had the pretty side facing up too, if that makes sense. You see how it's curved right there on the end? It's because I turned it when I went through. Once I got to this point, I did not like the way the burlap kept pulling up. I didn't like the way it looked on the sides. It made me worried that it wasn't going to look right. So I do start taking some zip ties here and there and attaching it to the frame just to make sure it's nice and secure and that it's not going to go anywhere. And I'll show you that in just a second. See how the right side kept pulling up? I was really nervous with it coming up into the thinner side at the top, that it just wasn't going to look right. And I wanted to make sure it stayed where I wanted it to stay. And I do gently push down as I go. I didn't make it too tight. You probably could, and you could just maybe use more burlap. But here you can see I am attaching burlap to the frame and to the burlap that's to the left of it. And it's simple to stick through the burlap and stuff. It's not very difficult. Since there's holes in it, it's easy. And I'll do that here and there as I'm going through, just whenever I feel like I need to do it. And feel free to push down on the burlap as you're coming through to fit your big spool through. It doesn't do anything because it comes back up on its own. I just think this looks so pretty. And I do like the exposed black lines in it because it reminds me of the lines in the pumpkin. So I don't try to cover those up or anything. I think it looks good. And here I decided to add another zip tie just to make sure it was where I wanted it to be. And you could skip this part too. I don't know if it's necessary. I just felt it was necessary. And I wanted to make sure I showed you me doing the whole thing just in case something popped up. If you had a question and you can see how I did it. But it's really as simple. You just are basically weaving it like a basket. And the fun thing with this pumpkin is you can use any color you want, or you can use multiple colors. I actually, like I said before, the first pumpkin I ever made was a white pumpkin. And I used white burlap. Okay, so with my excess burlap, I'm going to, which you can't see it right here on the right, but I have wrapped it through the wire, and then I'm attaching it in the center. And then I'm going to show you what I did on the right. I do the same thing to the left. So I cut it away. And then I'm going to attach it to that. I just didn't want these top wires exposed. And you can kind of see there on the right where I twisted it through. So then I attach it with the zip tie to the stem and the frame and the burlap. And then I'm just going to circle it around. And this just gave it a really pretty finished look at the top. And I like to weave it back through the burlap so there's not a piece sticking out. And now it's nice and clean on the top. So the bottom I still didn't like the way it looked, so I decided to go through and turn it, because that would hide the wire as well. So I'm just going to do a few things of hot glue here and there to get it to stay wrapped around the bottom. And for the stem, I'm using just this piece of scrap brown burlap that I have. And I'm doing the same thing I did with the orange, where I'm tri-folding it and hot gluing it. I decided to wrap it instead of just putting it over the stem, because I wanted my stem to extend further out than what is there right now. So I'm just hot gluing it to itself, and then I'll just wrap this around. And as I'm going up, it is coming off of the wire, but I like that. I like how it made the stem longer. And I noticed as I was wrapping that it was detaching from the base of the pumpkin or from the base of the stem. So I am going to zip tie it to the actual pumpkin frame part. And this just keeps the stem down where I want it to be. And you could wrap this with anything. You could do jute wire or jute string, or you could do yarn, or just anything. Anything you can think of, you can put on there. All right, now I'm just going to keep wrapping until I run out of burlap. And then, like I said before, you do use a lot of zip ties. I just feel like they hold better than pipe cleaners. But you can use pipe cleaners. Everywhere I use a zip tie, you could use a pipe cleaner. Or wire. Some people like to use wire. I don't like wire. I don't know why. It doesn't feel as secure to me. All right, so I just hot glued it to keep it flat, and then I'm just going to trim it away so it looks nice and neat. So I noticed this piece was kind of rough looking, so I'm just going to take a piece of the scrap and lay it across it just to make sure it stays where I want it to stay, and then it looks nice. All right, so I've showed y'all how to do this before, but I'm going to show you again how I make my vines. I like to add pipe cleaners into mesh tubing. I do suggest finding a pipe cleaner that matches your tubing, because the little fibers will show through. I did not have any green pipe cleaners, so gray kind of worked the best out of what I had. I thought white was too bright and anything else was too dark, but it worked. You couldn't see it through. So you pull it tight, and then you trim away at the end, and then I tie a knot. So I tie a knot at the top and the bottom, and then I just cut as close to the knot as I can. And I'm going to do this to 5 pipe cleaners, and then I wrap them around a pin, or you can use a glue stick or anything really. You can use your finger. And I'll go through and wrap each of these. And this just gives it the pumpkin vine look, because they have those wrapped vines. And to attach them, I will put them through the frame and wrap them around. Towards the end, I didn't like the way it felt. It was still hanging too loosely. So once I add my leaves, I will go through with a zip tie and secure it. I found these really pretty burlap leaves at Walmart. I know Dollar Tree carries them, but I didn't see any yet, and I saw these, so I grabbed them. And it's nice that they have that metal stem. They're easy to attach to the wreath. And then I just feed it through where I want it to be, and then I'll just wrap it. And I did want my leaves to be kind of in front of the stem. From what I could see, I thought that looked nicest. And you want to make sure that these metal pieces are not sticking out in any way. You don't want it to scratch someone's door. And you basically just attach it the best way that you can, whatever feels right. A piece of the burlap had like come unraveled, so I'm just using this pipe cleaner to help it lay down. And this just made it where it didn't stick straight up in the air. It was pulled around to the back. And then you could play around with it. You can add as much or as little as you want. You could also add a bow if you'd like, or different kinds of things. I did end up using 5 leaves and 5 vines. That's it. That's how I made my 3D burlap pumpkin wreath. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can email me at craftingwithlee@yahoo.com. And if you make this, check out my Facebook group, Southern Wreaths and More, on Facebook. I'll have a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and if y'all learned anything today, or if you like my videos, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.